Hey guys, Michael TDA here. Thank you for joining me. We are going through the plagues that came on Egypt because Pharaoh would not let Israel, Yehovah's son, his Bekor, go and serve Yehovah. Well, the plagues fell hard, and last week was the last plague we saw was the plague of the hail. The one thing that I wanted to point out to you, as I was just pointing out to one of our participants, was that the barley was in the head, is how it is translated in the Torah, in the New American Standard. But the word that they're actually using is right here. Look where my cursor is. It says, now the flax and the barley was struck, for the barley was aviv. The barley was in the aviv. And the aviv is what we look for when we start our new months, which incidentally, Kodesh, HaKodesh, is month and also moon. But the Aviv, in the month of the Aviv, that's how it's always going to be written, in the month of the Aviv, the Kodesh of the Aviv, probably HaKodesh HaAviv. And here it is right here. On this day, you're going out in the month of the Aviv month. Here's another one. 34:18. Unleavened bread you shall keep 7 days. You shall eat unleavened bread as it is commanded you in the appointed time in the Aviv month. For the month of the Aviv you came out of Egypt. This is the Aviv going on in this seventh plague that is hitting Egypt. Today we're going to do the 8th, 9th, and we're going to introduce the 10th month. In fact, I'm going to use this artwork today. I'm going to show it to you ahead of time because I want to get you thinking in that direction. That's the wrong one. I want this one. It says, the Passover is near. The Aviv wasn't found in Israel in March. It will be ready in April, as I predicted in my calendar. It looks like Passover is near. Pesach is near. Looks like it's going to be April 24th if the new moon is seen at my schedule on the Yehovah's calendar, which is on my blog. I have not put. I've got the first month listed, but I do not have the Passover listed because I haven't done the calendar for that. I will do that as soon as we see that new month. All right. Anyway, Passover is near. You're going to find out this week and next week how important the Passover is. I've got lots to say about that, but I think I'm going to wait right now and introduce it at a timely spot. Let's pick up where we left off, was in chapter 10 of Exodus. We're getting ready to introduce the locust coming on Egypt. Yeah, last we saw was after the hail hit, the Pharaoh called Moses, please stop the hail. And Moses went on, stop the hail again. In fact, I think he said he'd send. What does he say? Let's just take a quick look. Yeah, I have sinned this time. This is Pharaoh talking. Yehovah is righteous. My people are wicked. But he didn't let Israel go. And the last thing we saw, and when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased, he sinned yet more. And he hardened his heart, and he and his servants. This is where he left off. So here we are now in chapter 10. It said he hardened his heart, but here it says that Yehovah hardened his heart. Now Yehovah said to Moses, go into Pharaoh. I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that I may show these signs of mine before him. This is all about building credibility for what Yehovah says Yehovah's going to do. Don't plan otherwise. Yehovah hardened his heart. Don't let him harden your heart. I said, how long will Yehovah let a man go before he hardens his heart? Don't test Yehovah. You're going to lose because he's faithful. He's going to do what he says. He continues, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's sons the mighty things that I have done in Egypt, and my signs, which I have done among them, that you may know that, what? Ani Yehovah. I am Yehovah. What's he saying? He says, I said it. I'm going to do it. Notice, it doesn't say your daughters and your daughter's daughter, your daughter and your daughter's daughters. No, it says your sons and your sons' sons. Yehovah talks with men. Men follow Yehovah. Ladies follow their man. You know, I have a precept. I saw it today. Just right by accident. One of my precepts, number 7. The precepts, biblical precepts. Number 7 says that men are not women. Men and women are not equal. I think it has a lady and then it says not equal men. Women are not equal to men. They have different duties and responsibilities. This is going to come out very clearly as we talk about Passover. Well, again, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son, and that thou may tell in the hearing of thy son and thy son's sons the mighty things that I have done in Egypt, my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am Yehovah. So Moses and Aaron and Pharaoh. Do I have a son? I do. Moses and Aaron came to Pharaoh and said to him, thus says Yehovah. I always look this up. Elohi Ivrim. Elohim ha. No, Elohim ha Ivrim. The Elohim of the Hebrews. The Hebrews Elohim. Let my people go, that they may serve me. He didn't say Israel's Elohim, did he? He said the Hebrews Elohim. You know, I have to feel that some of these plagues, remember the first 3 fell on Israel, Jacob's seed. The rest fell on only Egypt. Did that happen so that Jacob's seed would realize that they needed to follow a different Elohim and come out from under the Elohim that they have served their entire life? This is what a Hebrew is. They're crossing over. They're leaving the jurisdiction of the land that they were born in and entering into the jurisdiction of Yehovah. That's what makes a man a ger. We're going to talk about that next week. I put no one as a Hebrew if he will not cross over, leave the kingdom of his birth, and join Yehovah's holy nation. Remember, he's talking to men, not women, when he's talking about serve, that he may serve me. He's talking about Israel, the man, that the man may serve me. And the word they use is strictly for men, aved. Here it is, aved. It's talking about men, bondservants, men bondservants. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory. Can you just hear them? They have had all these plagues come upon them. Oh my gosh, even their bodies boils and terrible things happening. And now, here comes the locust after the hail has destroyed practically everything in the land. The fruit trees, the crops, it was the barley harvest. It's what they feed their animals. Fortunately, the wheat hadn't come up yet. It won't come up for another almost 2 months. But this is disaster for Egypt. Remember, they lost all their livestock too. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory, and they shall cover the face of the earth, the land, so that no one will be able to see the land, and they shall eat the residue of what is left, which remains to you from the hail. They shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field. They shall fill thy houses, Pharaoh's houses. He's talking to Pharaoh. The houses of thy servants, the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers nor thy fathers' fathers, remember, men, have seen since that day that they were on the earth, to this day, on the land, till this day. It's the aretz. They're using the word aretz. And he turned and went out from Pharaoh. Now listen to this. They're starting to take Moses pretty seriously, because look what it says. The Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh's servants said to him, how long shall you let this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve Yehovah their Elohim. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed? They're starting to take what Moses is saying very seriously. But they're still only saying, let the men go. They're not saying let the men go with everybody else. We're going to see that next. So Moses and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh. And he said to them, go serve Yehovah your Elohim. Who are the ones that are going? And Moses said, we will go with our young, our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds. We will go, for we must hold a feast to Yehovah. Anybody missing? Young, old, sons, daughters, flocks, herds. What about the women? What about their women? See, we don't see this sometimes because we don't understand that where the man goes, his woman goes. Bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. She's not even mentioned. And you're going to see that many, many times in Torah. Wives are one with their husbands. Where their husbands go, they go. And there are no uncovered women even here in Egypt. Then he said to them, Yehovah had better be with you when I let you and your little ones go. Beware, for the evil is ahead of you. I have no idea what they're trying to say in this verse. I've looked at different translations. Here's what a few say. But he said to them, this is I don't remember what ESV is. I guess I've got it here. ESV is the English Standard Version. But he said to them, Yehovah be with you, if ever I let you and your little ones go. Because what is that? Is that a threat? Look, you have some evil purpose in mind. Maybe that's a decent translation. Then he said to them, Thus may Yehovah be with you, if ever I let you and your little ones go. Take heed, for evil is in your mind. He says, beware, for evil is ahead of you. Is this a threat? Maybe it's a threat. I don't understand. Then Yehovah, no, we have one verse here. It's 11. Not so. Go now, you who are men. This is what he's saying. This is how it gets translated. Go now, you who are men, and serve Yehovah. That word, you who are men, says this. Go now, the mighty men, the Gaber, Ha-Gaber. Remember, we went out 600 Ha-Gaber plus Toph and the mixed multitude that went with us. Wayne, you're back. I'm so glad. I don't know if you've gotten your microphone turned on. I hope you have. All right. Not so. Go now, the mighty men. So they're going to let the men go. Let the men go. That's what the servant said. Let the men go. So he's going to try that. And serve Yehovah for what? For that is what you desired. No, that's not what you desired. He just told him what he desired. He wanted everybody to go. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. He's going to do what his servant suggested. Let the men go. But he's supposed to let them go with their families and all that belong to them. Let's continue. 10:12. Then Yehovah said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Egypt and eat every herb of the field, all that the hail has left. And Moses stretched out his rod over the land of Egypt, and Yehovah brought an east wind on the land all that day and all that night. When it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts, and the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt and rested on all the territory of Egypt. They were very severe. Previously, there had been no such locusts as they, nor shall there be such after them. For they all covered the whole land, all the land. The face of all the land is actually what it says. Ha-aretz. Every place where it says the land is all ha-aretz. For some reason, they decide to say the face of the whole earth. Why? It's the face of the whole land. Why translate one word, land, and the other word, earth? It doesn't make sense. Are we being subtly deceived? I wonder. For they covered the face of the whole land, so that the land was darkened, and they ate every herb of the land and all the fruit trees which the hail had left. So there remained nothing green on the trees or on the plants of the field throughout the land, throughout Egypt's land. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste and said, I have sinned against Yehovah, your Elohim, and against you. Notice, he's still calling Yehovah Moses' Elohim. Yehovah is not Pharaoh's Elohim, and he's not going to let it be that way. He's going to die before he will make Yehovah his only Elohim. Remember, he wants to be the Elohim. You know, that's how most people are. They want to be their own Elohim. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say most people. Most people want to follow the laws of the land, and they have no clue as to the fraud that has been perpetrated against them. They don't know. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste and said, I have sinned against Yehovah, your Elohim, and against really thee. Now therefore, please forgive my sin only this once, and entreat Yehovah, thy Elohim, that he may take away from me this death only. So he went out from Pharaoh and entreated Yehovah. Did Moses go out immediately to do that? I wonder. And Yehovah turned a strong west wind, which took the locusts away and blew them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all Egypt's territory. All Egypt's was the word that they used there. Was it territory? Borders or territory, yeah. But Yehovah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let Israel's seed go. Then Yehovah said to Moses, stretch out your hand towards heaven, that there may be dark. Oh, you know what? Before we do this, I want to cover, we're going to stop here for just a moment, and I want to go to Yasher, and we're going to pick up in Yasher with that 8th plague. And Yehovah sent and brought numerous locusts into Egypt. Look what it says. The Kasal, Salom, Kargal, and Kagal, locusts, each of its kind, which devoured all that the hail had left remaining. You know, when I saw these 4 words, especially the last 3, I remember writing about this. And if we look at Leviticus 11, whoops, I want to go here. Leviticus 11, here's what it says. Even these, this is Leviticus 11, talks about the foods that we can eat. The behemoth, the fish, the bugs, and what's the last one? The birds. This is the bugs. Even these of them you may eat. This is the King James Version right here. After the locust, after its kind. The bald locust, after its kind, after his kind. The beetle and the grasshopper, after its kind. Well, if you look at all the translations, you're going to see things like grasshoppers and crickets and katydids. Beetles. Here, they said beetle in this one. Here, does a beetle have legs that allows it to leap on the earth? Remember, they got to go swarming and leaping. Does it swarm anywhere but in the movies? Many translations say grasshoppers, crickets, katydids, in addition to locusts, but grasshoppers, katydids, and crickets, well, they do have wings. They're not flyers. Their wings are more for sound. And when was the last time anyone dreaded a swarm of katydids or crickets? No, it's the locust that is coming on them. And it's all about the swarming and the jumping. So here's what I saw. The words here There's 3 words, H697, H270, 27, 28, H55, 56. This is all them down here. One talks about swarming. The other one talks about jumping. That's solam, maybe. It's what exactly we just read here in, where is it? Here. Salom, charcoal, and chagol. Look at here. Let me go back. I need to go to this one. Salom. That's the locust from its high jumping. This was from Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible that I was able to pull these from. And then they've got the chargol, exactly the same word. Salom, exactly the same word. Chagav, they said chagal. So it's spelled a little bit differently. But again, that is a locust as well. So what I'm thinking is he's talking about locust when he says the bugs that we can eat. There's no grasshoppers, there's no katydids, there's no beetles. Locusts, things that swarm and things that fly. Jump and swarm and fly. And the other thing that they mentioned is that they have a gregarious state. Gregarious state. More significant, locusts have the unusual ability to be total loners or enter what scientists euphemistically call a gregarious state. This is the flying and the swarming stage, the stuff of biblical proportions. And this is exactly what's happening in our story today. Kasal, Salom, Targol, and Chagal. Locusts, each of its kind, which devoured all that the hail had left remaining. Then the Egyptians rejoiced at the locusts, although they consumed the produce of the field, and they caught them in abundance and salted them for food. Yes, they're rejoicing over the locusts. Why? Because all the rest of their food is gone, and they know that they can salt them and eat them. Watch what happens. Oh, by the way, on this thing I just wrote you here, this is from my blog called Clean Bugs in Torah, and you'll find that under We Are Israel, Clean Foods, and if you hover over that, here's the Clean Bugs. So if you want to read the whole of that, it's an interesting read. I think you'll enjoy it. So it says, and Yehovah turned a mighty wind of the sea, which took away all the locusts, even those that were salted, and thrust them into the Red Sea. Not one locust remained in the boundaries of Egypt. So even the ones that they had killed and salted disappeared. Now we're going to talk about the darkness. 3 days of darkness. Here it is here. I need to go to this. Then Yehovah said to Moses, stretch out your hand towards heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt. Darkness which may even be felt. We're talking about a pretty severe darkness. So Moses stretched out his hand towards the heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt. 3 days. You know, we're not used to complete darkness, especially in the world that we live in, where we have electricity and moons and everything else. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. But all Israel's seed had light in their dwellings. Here's what Yasher had to say. Oh, I guess we're going to read Yasher. Yeah, I'm going to hold off on that. We're going to read it here in just a second. Then Moses called to Moses and said, go serve. Then Pharaoh called to Moses and said, go serve Yehovah. Only let your flocks and your herds be kept back. You see what he does? First he says the men can go. but everybody else has to stay back. Now they're saying, okay, well, we're going to let the kids go too, and your families, but your herd's got to stay back. Is that what Yehovah said? No, that's not what Yehovah said. But now Pharaoh is letting the whole family go, but he's keeping the livestock with him. Is that what Moses says? It's like he's bargaining with Yehovah, with Moses. I mean, remember, you're bargaining with Moses, you're bargaining with Yehovah. He's the sent one. What Yehovah says, what Yehovah says, Moses says, and what Moses says, Yehovah says. And Pharaoh called to Moses and said, go serve Yehovah. Let your little ones also go with you. But Moses said, you must also give us slaughters. They want to say sacrifices, you guys. Don't let yourself be hoodwinked. You're learning lies. Find out what it exactly says when you see these words. Sacrifices. Here's sacrifices. They're two different words. But they translate them both as sacrifices. That should be a problem for you. You need to dig deeper. But Moses said, here it is. And Moses said, but, they say but. It says and. And Moses said, thou must also give into our hands slaughters. Slaughters is the meat that we're going to kill and eat. And olah, that's the meat that we're going to kill and burn up for Yehovah, a sweet aroma to him, that we may bring them. It says that we may slaughter them, that we may burnt offerings. It doesn't say offerings. It's olah, another kind of bad word. It's not even there. That we may bring, that we may sacrifice to Yehovah Elohim. No, that's not what it says. That we may bring them unto Yehovah our Elohim. The word that they're using there is asah. A-S-A-W, asah. Bring. They can also say, do this to, I guess it's a little better. Make. Bring them, make them for Yehovah, bring them to Yehovah. One of the things that it is, here it says, accomplish, advance, appoint, be at, become, bear, bestow, bring forth. Yeah, bring to Yehovah. I think is a good translation for this particular word, especially in this particular instance. We may bring them to Yehovah, our Elohim. Our Elohim. You're not our Elohim. Yehovah's our Elohim. You're starting to get the points, but you're never really going to get it. It says, our livestock also shall go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind, for we must take some of them to serve Yehovah our Elohim. And even we do not know what we must serve Yehovah until we arrive there. Again, it's like Pharaoh. Many people want to bargain with Yehovah. He will have his way in the end. It's best to get on board early. There's a lot of people out there that want to do the minimum requirements. They think to get into heaven. They have no clue about Passover. They have no clue about what righteousness actually is. Doing Yehovah's statutes and judgments and ordinances. They have no clue. All I want is a shack in the back. You know what? They don't want a shack in the back. They want to be great in the kingdom, but they aren't going to be great in the kingdom. We've got a false narrative that's been given to us by the Catholic Church to turn us away from Passover. So much to learn. So little time. You know, Passover's coming, April 24th-ish, maybe 25th. But it's coming. There's a second Passover. Yehovah's very gracious. But I think there's going to be a Passover coming on the earth that is going to be like the Passover that we're going to have in Egypt right now. Days away. And it's going to be too late. Either you go at the right time, keep the Passover and go, or you stay behind and die. We're going to see almost all the men of Egypt are going to die. They've already lost all their firstborn, but they're going to lose practically everybody in the Red Sea. Wait till you see. Torah doesn't give us a complete picture. Our livestock also shall go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind. I guess I read that. Let's go down to 27. But Yehovah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, get away from me. Take heed to yourself and see my face no more. For in the day you see my face, you shall die. Whoa. So now Pharaoh's getting in Moses' face. The darkness was hard to take. We're going to see, let me just do this. I put all of Exodus 11 is going on between the 27th and the 29th verse. The whole next chapter is going on between here and here. Here's second to the last or third to the last verse in our next chapter. And all these your servants shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out of here, get out. And all the people who follow you, after that I will go out. Then he went out to Pharaoh, and then he went out from Pharaoh with great anger. Went out from Pharaoh? No, Pharaoh went to him. He told Pharaoh. Pharaoh told him, you shall not see my face again. But we're going to see that in the end, Pharaoh goes to Moses to tell him, get out of town. So Moses said, you have spoken well. I will never see your face again. So chapter 11. No, before we go to chapter 11, let's read Yasher. Here's Yasher right here. We have one more chapter to read in Yasher. One more plague. Elohim sent darkness upon Egypt, that the whole land of Egypt and Pathros became dark for 3 days, so that a man could not see his hand when he lifted it to his mouth. At that time died many of Israel's people. Who died in Israel? They said people who rebelled against Yehovah, who would not hearken to Moses and Aaron and believe not in them that Elohim had sent them. Who died? It wasn't the lady people. It was the men people. Can a woman rebel against Yehovah? No. She's not supposed to obey Yehovah. She's supposed to obey her man. A woman's duty is to serve her man. You could say that if a woman rebels against her man, that she's also rebelling against Yehovah. But these are men who are rebelling against Yehovah. Remember, Yehovah is going to get his way. And when a man is killed, often so is his family. We saw that with Achan. Remember, he hid garments. He hid gold under his tent, and his wife and children were killed also. Dathan, Abiram, and whoever the other person was, same situation. Their whole family was killed. That is why Israel is commanded to take care of widows and fatherless children. Do you know, if a man is killed, His wife and children are left. She's a widow, and they're fatherless. Fatherless is what we get the word orphan from. We think that in our narrative, we think that an orphan is someone that doesn't have a mother and a father. But an orphan is a child that does not have a father. That's why when the fathers die, we take care of their widows and orphans. They're not two separate things. They go together. I just want to challenge our thinking. At that time, died many of Israel's people who had rebelled against Yehovah. Did the men die? And the women and children had to be taken by their families? The men's families? I think so. Who would not hearken to Moses and Aaron and believe not that Elohim had sent them? And who had said, we will not go forth from Egypt, lest we perish with hunger in the desolate wilderness. And who would not hearken to the voice of Moses? Who would not hearken to the voice of Moses? And they said it twice. Yehovah plagued them in the 3 days of darkness, and the Israelites buried them in those days without the Egyptians knowing of them and rejoicing over them. Yehovah killed his rebellious people in secret. They would not listen. They would not hearken to Moses. How many people in the world right now have swallowed this Jesus narrative and will not hearken to Moses, will not do the things that Moses told us to do? Does Yehovah change? Does his word endure forever or not? Yet the Catholic Church has given us a whole new narrative. I call Jesus the golden calf of the modern age. We've learned lies. I think the truth is going to come out when we see some of the documents that are being recovered from the archive, the dungeons of the Catholic Church. But we'll see. It says, and the darkness was very great in Egypt for 3 days. And any person who was standing when the darkness came remained standing in his place. I think he probably sat down. And he that was sitting remained sitting. And he that was lying continued lying in the same state. And he that was walking remained sitting upon the ground in the same spot. And this thing happened to all the Egyptians until the darkness had passed away. Now it says we're supposed to read Exodus 11, 12, and 13. But before we do, I want to just mention this. And the days of darkness passed away, and Yehovah sent Moses and Aaron to Israel's seed. You hear me say Israel's seed a lot. And because this is about Passover, because we're talking about, I want to pull in a much broader group to understand what's going on with Passover. Maybe they'll do some searching and they'll come up with this. But when I talk about Israel's seed, I never talk about the children of Israel. I don't talk about the sons of Israel, because that's not what it says. Israel is not a place. Israel is a people. If we talk about this, actually, just to know what this says, children of Israel is translated from B'nai Israel. B'nai Israel. I remember when I was young, they used to translate it as sons of Israel. And as I got older, I started seeing children of Israel. But I remember asking my Sunday school teacher, how come it says children of Israel and sometimes it says sons of Israel? He didn't know. Israel is a spiritually born group of men. We're going to talk about B'nai Adam. These are B'nai. You know, I could talk about seed. Zerah is sperm. Technically, that's seed. But I use Israel's seed to talk about multi-generations of men. Men who have sons, who have sons, who have sons, who have sons. So B'nai Adam, we're all men. Men, people who are men, are B'nai Adam. If we talk about B'nai Noah, all men are B'nai Noah. If we talk about B'nai Heth, or Heth, remember that's where Abraham bought the cave at Machpelah from Heth's B'nai Heth, Heth's seed, multi-generations of sons of Heth. And Jacob do the same things. Jacob's seed. Jacob, B'nai Jacob. Those are the multi-generations of men who came from Jacob. But when we talk about Israel, we're talking about something completely different. We're talking about this. Here it is. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yehovah, Israel is my son, my firstborn. How can they be born again? They're his firstborn. We didn't get to leave until we became Israel, Yehovah's son, his firstborn. He goes on, let Israel go that he may serve me. And if you will not, I'll kill your firstborn. Remember, the firstborn is always sacred because they're the ones that carry on the family's name. They get the property. They get most of the inheritance. But Israel is a spiritually born group of men. And we're going to see that on Passover is when the man is born again. He circumcises himself and comes into covenant with Yehovah. He was a ger, and then he becomes an Ezrach. They call him a native of the land in many translations. But that's the word Ezrach that's being covered over. So when we talk about Israel, B'nai Israel, we're talking about multi-generations of spiritually born men. These are the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because they were all spiritually born men. Remember, Abraham came into covenant in chapter 17 of Genesis when he was told to circumcise himself and all the men of his household. And then come into covenant with Yehovah. This was Passover, same time, same date. Isaac was born on Passover. Isaac was going to be killed on Passover. But Yehovah provided a ram. All right. So, that's really the key. I wanted you to see who we're talking about when we talk about Israel's seed. Spiritually born generations of men who have kept the Passover. It says, celebrate your feast. Your feast? Whose feast is it? It's the men's feast. Celebrate your feast. And make your Passover, your Pesach. For everyone, for behold, I come in the midst of the night amongst the Egyptians, and I will smite all the firstborn, from the firstborn of man to the firstborn of beasts. And when I see your Pesach, I will pass over you. This is where we get the word Passover, Pesach. All right. From there, I want to do chapter 11. We are, we're 49 minutes. I've got to get through chapter 11. I want to do Passover next week. And I want to do chapter 11. So let's go to chapter 11. It says, and Yehovah said to Moses, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. Afterwards, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, surely he will drive you out of here altogether. Again, this entire chapter is what's happening between 27 and 29 of the previous chapter. Speak now in the hearing of the people, and let every man ask from his neighbor and every woman from her neighbor articles of silver and articles of gold. I think this is very interesting because if Yehovah wants to include women, he mentions them directly. He talks mostly about men. When he talks about his people, he's talking about men. When he talks about Israel, he's talking about spiritually born men. When he talks about B'nai Jacob, Jacob's seed, he's talking about men. When he tells Israel to teach our sons and our sons' sons the ways of Yehovah all our days, he's talking about men. But often he talks about women when he says he's going to talk about women. So he mentions women here. And Yehovah gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and the sight of the people. Yeah, you think maybe they liked him before when he was a boy. But they're understanding right now he's pretty important. Then Moses said, thus says Yehovah, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn. That's a sacred group. A firstborn son. Every man wants a firstborn son. I'm a firstborn son. All the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on the throne, to the firstborn of the female servant, who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the animals. Bekor is the word that we're talking about here. Bekor are males. Notice, it says the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, the greatest in Egypt. To the firstborn of the female slave, the least in Egypt. The female servant. She's the least in Egypt. But the firstborn that comes from both of those are going to die. Was it the firstborn of men and beasts who died? Yasher says it was both. It says both. But what does Torah say? Yeah, Yasher actually was going to tell us that the females died also. That's not true. And the Bekor, I think it has to do with the translators, perhaps. I don't know exactly why they happened that way. And this is Exodus 11:5. Why am I even showing this? The firstborn of the servants, the Shifka, the least, who's at the mill. She was kind of the outdoor servant. But these are all Bekor. I think here we have Bekor, firstborn male of a man or animal. Bekorah is the firstborn daughter. Moses' mom, I forget what her name is right now. It might even be in this section. She was a firstborn daughter. But it's not about firstborn daughters. It's not about Bekorah. And she wasn't technically firstborn because she had two brothers that were older than she. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yehovah, this is for Exodus 4:23. Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go. We're going to be Yehovah's sons. I'm Yehovah's son. We want to make Jesus is the Son of God. No, he might be a son of God if he existed at all, but he's not the Son of God. He says, let my son go that he may serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, I will kill your son, your firstborn. So we're talking about spiritually born men versus physically born men. Two different. The spiritually born man, Israel, is born a second time. Let my son, my firstborn go, that he may serve me. We didn't go until we became Israel, the Ezrach men. Then we were able to leave Egypt. This idea of the firstborn is all about the seed and the matrix being opened. Let me try talking about matrix. This is a little bit hard for people to understand. He says in Exodus 13:2, that's coming up in a couple weeks, consecrate to me all the firstborn, a firstling of the womb. He's actually telling you what a firstborn is. The firstling of the womb among Israel's seed, both of man and of beast, is mine. The firstborn, the Bakar, from man and beast is Yehovah's. They're the males. Let me reinforce that with this next verse, also from chapter 13, verse 15. And it came to pass when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go that Yehovah killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Same word, Bakar. Therefore, sacrifice to Yehovah all the males. We're talking about males because they're Bakar that opened the womb. But all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. Yehovah talks about, and I'm spacing on where it is right now, but he talks about as a man ba'als a woman, as a man marries a woman, so Yehovah ba'als his sons. This is who they are. Deuteronomy talks about the Bakor. I'm not going to go into that, talking about it being male. Let's continue. Firstborn of males and animals, men and animals. Then there shall be a great outcry throughout the land of Egypt. Remember, this is Yehovah talking to Moses. Moses isn't talking to the people yet. He's just giving them a heads up. And there shall be a great cry throughout the land of Egypt, such as was not like it before, nor shall be like it again. But again, none of Israel's seed shall move its tongue. None of Israel's seed shall a dog move its tongue against man or beasts, that you may know that Yehovah does make a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Talking about the dogs are going to eat the dead. Remember when Jezebel fell from the tower and the dogs ate her? We're going to see that more concretely in Yasher, where the dogs are actually eating the dead. Has anyone considered that this is likely going to happen again in the future? Remember what Ecclesiastes said here. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. I got a hunch that one of these Passovers isn't going to be this Passover. It could. Boy, our world is in quite an upheaval right now. But it might not be this Passover, but I think there's going to be a Passover that Yehovah is going to bring out Israel and put us under his authority. I think we're going to see it in conjunction with a great shaking of the earth. Well, we talked about that when we went through Isaiah and Ezekiel. And all these thy servants shall come down to me and bow down to me. Oh, no, hold it. Would we switch over? Because we're not talking about Pharaoh here. Maybe we are. And there shall be a great, but against none of Israel's seed shall the dog move its tongue or beast, that you may know that Yehovah does not make a difference between Egypt and the Egyptians and Israel. And all these thy servants shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out. This is like Moses now talking to Pharaoh. When did he start speaking to Pharaoh? Yeah, see, it's kind of going back and forth. This is why I say it's kind of fits in with what we read in the last few verses of chapter 10. And all these thy servants, this is Pharaoh's servants, shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out! All the people and all the people who follow you. After that, I will go out. Moses is going to go out with all the people. Then he went out from Pharaoh in great anger. It's kind of like it switched. This portion is kind of going back to what we just read in the last chapter. But Yehovah said to Moses, Pharaoh will not heed you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Yehovah is using Pharaoh to show his greatness. Oh, it's hard on Pharaoh and it's hard on Pharaoh's people. You know, there's going to be, it says we're going to go out with a mixed multitude, or mixed, how do we put it? Wayne, you had it last week. Mixed heads of families, mixed heads of families. I got a hunch that those are Egyptian men, Ger, who did not keep the Passover, repented, and now they're going out with Israel. That's my guess. Pharaoh will not heed you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. So Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and Yehovah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let Israel go out of the land. Remember, it wasn't time. Jacob's seed had yet to become Israel's seed. See, now we're starting to understand men to spiritually born men. Yehovah's firstborn Ezrach men. That's when we get to go out of Egypt, when we became Israel's men. That is what we're going to be talking about next week in chapter 12. You've got to join me. This is a very, very important chapter for us to go through. Please don't fall asleep. Let's listen to what Yehovah has to say. Oh, we only went a whole hour. We're in great shape today. You guys, thank you for joining me. I'm so blessed to have you here. Hope to see you next week. Remember, Passover's coming the 14th of April. No, the 24th of April. 14th, that's probably going to be the new moon. Hopefully we'll have a nice clear sky in Israel and we'll see that new moon. All right. Love you tons. See you next time. Bye now.